heart attack. Fast, fatal, hard impact. Past painful scars. In fact, I blast tasteful bars and pass. I back up my actions. Fact, don't ask, grab reactions. Jacked attack with every word, then act with class as they hear me snap. I got nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused. Call the shots and they produce. I ain't lost, I'm finally loose. Pick a new silver juice. I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now. Y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember, you're discreet now. Get ready for defeat now.
Alrighty. Hello everybody. This is Kirusho here, and now. Whenever we last left off with this series, we had Deku and the survivors. And what happened in the last part? Now, in the last part, somebody survived the attack on the convoy whenever Deku and Kendo led the giant monster back to the military. The survivor then stalking out and following Deku and his group. The person they did this for a while, up until they were able to break into the mansion in an attempt to kill Deku. However, somebody took a bullet for Deku and they died. Meanwhile, Deku, he survived. Him interrogating the man in a way he never thought he'd have to in his entire life. And he learned information. Now, with that being said, after everything that happened, they would have searched around, finding the area where the man hopped the fence and taking the body and getting it off the wires. As they would have done that, it would have been quiet. Over the course of the next couple days, nobody really speaks a lot or tries to interact with one another. They're all mourning their dead friend. And it's just hard. They were at the mansion for quite some time, and they didn't lose anybody. Morale was just starting to go back up. Yeah, it's the end of the world, but they're still alive. There's that. They're not dying on each other. Not like back then at the store. And you do have right now. There's today. Deku, he just does think about what happened in the summer. He's thinking about everything. As he does look up towards the sky. The snowfall. While it is nice, it's annoying. And it does cause problems. Roads are too slippery. And right now, it's dangerous to use vehicles. So, Deku, him and another person, they're walking through the snow. Them trudging through it as they do just hear the sound of their boots crunching on it. And they do both keep a lookout. Deku, he's wearing a thick, heavy jacket. And the person behind him, they're wearing something similar. And they're also carrying their weapons. With how much snow is out and the raging storm, there's really no need for silencers, or even firearms in general, but it's good to have them on them. And then there's even swords. Deku, he's found out something interesting. In the cold weather, zombies, they do tend to move slower. And if you do want to put it in a way, sometimes they're even turned into statues, if you don't want to put it like that. With their skin hardening in the winter, it's actually easier for you to use a baseball bat on them. There is that observation. However, this actually has brought up another concern. Sometimes these zombies who are statues, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're able to just stay warm enough using a quirk that they're able to move, and they'll only pretend to be frozen. You drop your guard as you walk by one, then it will suddenly just lunge and attack you. It shows that these things are still intelligent. They're not mindless, they're not just wandering around. Some of them are using tactics. And while that actually is very scary to think about, it does show higher brain functions. Now, Deku and this person, as they're walking through, they actually do walk into a store. Most of the glass on the building is intact, and that would be a good sign normally. However, yeah, Deku, he does take it as, well, there might be something in here. There's also probably a lot of danger involved. Deku and this person walking into the store as Deku does close the door behind them and go to set something in front of it. As the person, they do get ready with their weapon. Now, you do actually have where they do start to tap their sword on the wall, as this sound is echoed throughout the entire store. This being where a zombie does somewhat shamble out very slowly. And Deku, he does look at it. It's got its arms on the wall. It's got another set of them actually grabbing onto the ceiling. And from what he can see, this thing looks like it's one of the, what are they called? Lungers or whatever. It's one of the ones that they stay in close proximity. They're strange and weird. And usually while these things would be a problem indoors, thanks to the winter, they're just as slow as normal zombies. And they can't really cling on objects as well, considering the fact that those muscle tendons are frozen up. Now, this thing actually does try to lunge forwards and attack the person Deku's with, as they do go rushing forwards and slice down at one of the legs, as they do throughout their other leg, kicking into it. This thing actually falling to the right as it does attempt to grab onto them, as it does reach out and go to grab onto their hood. This being where they actually go jumping backwards and the beanie is pulled off Jiro's head. Her doing that, she's actually going to bring up her hand and slice this thing's arm clean off, before going to actually try to bring up her foot and stomp down the zombie's head. Now, Jiro does so very, very hard, and whenever the zombie does still try to move and going to bring up one of its hands to grab onto her, you do actually have Deku, who, after rushing in, he actually is going to bring up his hand, as he does have one sword in his hand and a gun in the other. Deku bringing up his gun and firing a bullet, it whisking through the air and smashing the zombie right in the head, as the body and the hands do go limp. Now, this is actually where Jiro, she does go to walk over and grab her beanie out of the zombie's hand that was cut off. Her picking it up and going to put it back on, as she does make a remark that now her ears are very cold. I think you'll be fine. Her turning. Easy for you to say. Jiro, let's just hurry it up. We only got a few hours of daylight. Even then, with this storm, it might get dark early. I know, okay? But was that gunshot seriously needed? Yeah, trust me. Besides, think about it this way. Deku telling her that if there were any more zombies in this building, they would have heard the shots, and they would have rushed right through that doorway right there. Now, she has remarked that they're all too slow to do so, and Deku does ask her how warm she thinks it might be in here. And Jiro, she does just think for a minute that it might be warmer in here, but even then it's still cold as hell outside, so it doesn't really matter since they can still see their breath. This being where they do start to search around. They do find some things. And right now, Deku, he's just thinking. It's been a long time. Right now, it's, from what he remembers, right, or if he does have the day correct, it's somewhere around December 7th. Maybe it's the 8th or 9th. He could be wrong. Or it could just be far off, and it could be later December. It could almost be New Year's. He's been trying to keep track, but he hasn't made an entry in his journal in a while. So he might have to get back on that. Or, well, check what everyone else says today is. Hell, it could even be Christmas. That'd be what Deku does think. And for right now, he actually is putting a lot of stuff into his bag. The store they're in, it actually is one for all music equipment. And Jiro should want to come here, since right down the street from here, there actually is a store where there could be potentially some supplies. Possibly medical, or even food. And right now, that is also good. If he's correct, that store could possibly have bags of charcoal, or possibly sell firewood. Even if it doesn't, and they have one or the other, it's still very good for them. Right now, the mansion, they have it basically locked down from head to toe. They've had to put blankets on windows and seal up any broken windows that they found and just lock the entire place down. It's hard. With the fact that water hardly is running right now and that heat is a rarity, all of them basically have to stay bundled up. And if they're not doing that, they do have to conserve power. Now, you do have where Deku, as he's putting some stuff in his bag, he does go to walk towards the door. As he does get there and walk out. Jiro following close behind as they actually are walking down the street. Deku, as he's walking around, he is actually sure to stab his sword outwards in every zombie's head he does walk by. Jiro doing the same as the two do have a conversation. She's trying to ask Deku exactly what he might know on this whole zombie thing. And Deku does try to tell her that he doesn't really know much. While he might be the one who is the reason for them discovering they're not infected by bites, there's still a lot up in the air. And for right now, no one knows anything. You don't have theories? I might have a few. Deku does say, going to pull his sword out as he does continue walking. She's just wondering. She thinks that this whole zombie virus thing, it could have been caused by maybe a quirk, right? Because some quirks are strange. Even then, there's even the idea that, it could have been just random, some sort of contaminated meat product, or possibly even aliens, because, weird shit out in space isn't too out of the ordinary, and it landing on Earth could be a possibility. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, maybe. It's just. Let's see. If it was something like that, Deku to say, him walking into the busted door of the store, him telling her that if it was something so simple like that, they could find it out easy. It would be apparent. There would have been some sort of news article about it. If he's correct, he didn't see anything on the news about any weird thing heading towards Earth. They didn't see any of that. They didn't hear anything about it. They didn't hear anything about a recall for meat. So it couldn't have been any of that. The two searching around. As she has actually asked Deku what he thinks it could be. And Deku, he does pause for a second. It does seem weird. However, he does bring up the idea of quark singularity. And Jiro, she does hear about that, but she doesn't really know what to do with it. The idea of quark singularity has been around for generations. So everybody knows about it, or at least have heard mention of it. The idea that quarks reach a tipping point for the body, and one day they can't handle it. However, what Deku, he does start describing, it does seem weird. Maybe this generation was the one that was always destined to deal with it. Their generation was destined to learn and deal with the singularity event. However, this feels like somebody may have hastened it or increased the timing of it. And she actually is confused by that. As Deku does describe that quark singularity is best described as overpowering the body and virtually causing it to break down, since it can't contain the amount of power in a human body. And this does sort of surprise Jiro. However, Deku does also point out a flaw in this idea. If that is the case though, this phenomenon, it wouldn't affect quirkless people. And that actually does somewhat concern Jiro a bit more. Her dad was quirkless. And if she's right, she's hoping she's right, he might still be alive. He's just barricaded in a sound studio, maybe, or he could be somewhere else. Or there's the most likely option. Two, actually. One that, while it is comforting, it is disturbing. And the other, it's our dad being a zombie. Now, the two do pick up supplies. And Deku, luckily, he does find a few bundles of wood that they were somewhat hidden in the back. Deku actually being able to pull them out from the place they were at, as he does go to put some onto his bag. Him loading up as much as possible as he does throw the bag over his shoulders and bring it up. Deku putting some of the wood he has underneath his arm as he does go to hand one over to Jiro, asking if she has enough room for this. I think so. But wouldn't this mean we have to go back early? Yeah, it does. Now, the two do leave. They get back to the mansion. And while it is actually very much cold for them, they do get inside and start warming up a bit. Them being able to walk inside the mansion and find that everybody, they're all here. Right now, gas is the only thing they have that is somewhat still functioning properly. And while that is still iffy, they are at least taking the precaution. They stockpiled as much charcoal as they could back during the summer. And whenever it came to firewood, yeah. That was another thing Deku talked about. It did seem kind of weird at the time, but now they're all seeing it. And today is actually something that they're going to try doing. They're using the charcoal and trying to keep certain rooms warm. They're just lighting it in very strong metal pans or even pots they do find, and just letting it heat up a room. It's weird though. Certain rooms that they can't do this for, they do have fireplaces, and usually people will just gather around there. It's just strange. But it does somewhat bring them comfort. They all huddle around a fire together. And while it is a struggle to keep warm a bit, they all do at least have each other. It's not too much of a comfort, since it's difficult and hard for them. But they're getting by. Pretty soon, they can go back to normal a little bit. They can get things back in order. They can just start going outside and not have to worry about how cold it is. And we actually do cut to later. Deku, he actually is lying in his bed. And he is thinking about this. He's pretty cold, so he does gotta get up. Him walking into the hallway as he does go to find another blanket. It's gotta be around 12 or 1 in the morning. And Deku, while he is actually out walking around, he does find the hallway. Him opening the door, grabbing another blanket and going to walk out. As he is walking down, and he does look outside. He does see somebody sitting down outside. And it's weird. They're sitting out there in the snow. Deku actually walking outside and going to bring out down his hand. Him tapping on their shoulder as they do go to turn. And Deku does see their breath. Hey. Hey, Gendo. Are you alright? Yeah, I'm just cold. What about you? I'm on watch. Why? It's too cold out here. I know. I couldn't sleep. Yeah, I get it. Trust me, I really do. For now, though, it's too cold out here. You're gonna get sick. I'll be fine. Deku going to bring up his hand. Deku putting it under her forehead, telling her that she is not fine, and that he can tell she's cold. Her nose is turning red and it's somewhat running. Deku going to pick her up as he does drag her inside. As Deku, he does tell her that if she's going to be standing watch, do it inside. If she needs to, move a blanket and find a place to sit. Boil something warm like tea or water just to have. And that would keep her warm enough if she's just going to be sitting by a window. Kendo taking Deku's advice, as she's going to turn around and walk away. However, she does somewhat just stop him for a second. Hey, Deku turning around. What's up? I had a question. You sleep at night, right? Define sleep. Well, you know, you haven't had those dreams. You know what I'm talking about, right? I've had them almost every night. But you just... Sorry, I'm so cold. You sleep though, right? Sometimes. Sometimes I wake up feeling better. Sometimes I feel worse. Sometimes I just remember I have to make it to tomorrow. Hell. What we have here today, what we have here tonight, it's all messed up and good. But still, it does make me concerned. Deku turning back around. I'm going to walk back towards his room as Kendo. She doesn't want to follow him. Right now, it's weird. Deku, Kirishima, and her. They're the ones everyone has been looking toward. They're the ones people just look at like they're leaders or the, pro heroes in charge. And she doesn't really want to break that facade. She's just as scared as Kirishima. And while Kirishima, he has trouble hiding it, he at least does look towards Deku. And Deku, people, they know he's scared. They know he's terrified. But he doesn't let his fear stop him. He'll act before his mind can react. That's the type of person he is. And that's what makes him dangerous. Because he could probably kill you before he even thinks about it. Before he even has time to regret it. Now, while it is somewhat of a discomforting thought to Kendo, it also does bring her some comfort. Deku wouldn't hesitate to take a bullet for any of them. And while they might not feel the same, they do at least show that respect back towards him. Now, Deku, he eventually does get to his room. As whenever he does, he's still laying down. Him slowly drifting off to bed as he does actually go back to that place. Go back to that place in his mind. He's sitting down at the table in his home, and he's eating dinner. He remembers this day. He remembers this dream. But at the same time, it feels brand new every time he does have it. While he's sitting there, he's eating dinner and looking across the table. He sees his mom, her face obscured by her hair. Him turning to see Mitsuki and then turning his head to see Bakugo. As Deku, he even does see the face of his father. It's directly next to his mother and the seat to the right. And then there's Masaru. Deku turning his head. He doesn't know what happened to that man. Bakugo's dad. Well, the man, yeah, he had a quirk similar to Mitsuki's. So it can only be described that he did not make it. Now, Deku, he does see this man as normal. Meanwhile, he does see his dad as a zombie and everyone else there as well. And he does go back to looking down at his food, as it's turned into rotten meat and everything. Deku, having his vision change from a normal perspective to this sick, twisted one, where there's blood all over the table and these monsters are all staring at him. They're all just staring at him. And Deku, he finally does jump up awake. Him in a cold sweat and terrified. As he does go to bring up his hands and grab at his chest, along with even going to bring his hand up to his mouth. He can't think about that. That dream, it makes him sick to his stomach. He feels this sick, twisted weight in it. He's been having that dream for a while. He doesn't remember when he stopped having the other ones. But even then, the thing that's on the plate, it's what terrifies him the most. It's his own face. His own face rotting away on that plate. Now, Deku, he does get to turn his head to the right. Him going to grab a cup of water that is still somewhat warm. As he does go to chug it down, and go to put it back down. Before going to back to lying down and just trying to think. Everything that's been going on, it's all bad. Okay. You're fine. You're okay. You just need a minute. Try not to think about it. Let me when Deku does try to tell himself. As he does go to try and roll back over. Deku actually feeling his hand land on something that he did go to lay down to the right. Deku somewhat jumping upwards and going to pull back the blankets. As he does see Kendo. And this does confuse him. What are you doing here? You were screaming in your sleep, and I came to help you. When? Somewhere around an hour ago. You finally stopped screaming and, well, I just sort of fell asleep myself. I guess, well, I just don't know, okay? Whenever I was asleep a minute ago, I didn't feel like I had a nightmare. Okay? Just, please, let me sleep here. It's warm, and I don't feel scared. Okay? Now, Deku can see the look in her eye. Usually this girl, she's so tough, determined, and she rarely shows moments of weakness. She's like a terrified child. In fact, it does make Deku somewhat remember. He's like one too. He can't argue with her. He did see his dream, the parts of it he can remember. It's still kind of fuzzy. It did feel less intense this time. It felt like it was just fuzzy and hazy, buzzing in and out of the good and the bad. And Deku, he ultimately does decide that he'll grant that request. He doesn't do it for more or less her sake. But he does understand that she will get better with this too. And the two, they do somewhat lay down together, back to back. And they do somewhat have a little bit of a conversation. They try to talk about how things are going recently. And while things, they are strange for a conversation, eventually both of them, they do fall asleep. And for once in a while, there's no nightmares. Now, with that being said, I do hope you guys enjoyed. Have an amazing day. I'll catch you guys in the next part.